Welcome to Projects for All. My name's Mike, and today we have this little Delta to check out. It is the S36-295T3, otherwise known as the Delta ShopMaster, available at Walmart. This is a $180 table saw. There is a surprising amount of fairly decent quality stuff going on here, but not all of it is good quality stuff. So come on in here, we'll do the walk around, we'll slap it together, we're gonna do some cutting, and we'll see if it's any good. A few specs from the box: 15 amps, easy bevel, easy lock rip fence, lightweight. This I can attest to. It is actually very lightweight to carry. 3-year warranty and UL listed. It has the Delta part number, although I wonder if Delta really made this. I think anytime we do these super budget saws, we're gonna have to tailor our expectations just a little bit. I mean, what can you expect for 180 bucks? As long as this is safe, everything locks up tight, I would say it's gonna be a win. But we're gonna find out. Wow, looks like we gotta put a little bit of stuff together here. Is that your front rail? 16-inch full rip right, 10 on the left. This is actually, feels like okay quality. Owner's manual. Blade guard actually doesn't feel any cheaper. Maybe this plastic, but this feels like standard quality, like we get with every saw, to be honest with you. Got our knob, miter gauge, super cheap, but you know, 5 years ago we got this with all of the $500, $600 saws, so I'm not gonna fault him for this. Standard kickback pawl, like we get with every saw. We got a little bit of hardware. Yeah, we have to put a few things together. And we got a push stick. Feels like ABS, pretty standard stuff. What is that? Like they put a sticker on and then peeled it off. This doesn't feel like terrible quality. Interesting, look at that. This has some weight to it. We got an extension to put on this. All kinds of interesting stuff in here. But here's everything that came out of the box. We have an actual Delta style owner's manual. This looks like my big Delta's manual, really. We've got an exploded view chart. It's nice to see that, you know, this is gonna be a super cheap table saw. It just is what it is. We only paid 180 bucks for it, but it seems like Delta is taking it kind of seriously. We got multiple warnings here to take the styrofoam out. Before raising blade, remove styrofoam. It's up underneath there, you'll see it. Also a giant sticker telling us the same thing here. Come on, please come off clean. All right, good Lord. We'll install our wing on the right side of our saw. Interestingly enough, the wing is steel, table's not. It's metal, so some kind of aluminum, I would assume. All right, first up, we'll install our front rail. They put little supports here, so it just sits right on there, which is nice. I don't have to align anything. We're gonna use these little cap screws. These are 4mm. There's an Allen key in the extension, so you don't have to have any tools to put this together. These are 25 millimeters long, so kind of overkill, I think. I guess so you can get them started, they have to be long. They say to use a straight edge to align this. We're gonna do it flat on the table and then check our work once we flip it over. You got 3 holes on here. So I was wrong. There's one back here in the corner too that I couldn't see. So you're gonna put the four short ones here, and then you got your long cap screws for the rail, and you're gonna get little nuts on those because there's nothing threaded on the. Just tighten all 6 of these down, and that's it. We'll tighten down the rail in the front here. Once I have this all pulled together, actually we're gonna tighten these once we flip it over so we know that the rail is sitting on the supports. Now that we have this flipped over, we'll push down on this just to make sure it's sitting on the supports. We'll tighten all these down and that's it. We'll put our knob on the front here. Let's check this thing out. Big giant Phillips head screw, we'll just drop that down in there. They give you a Phillips on the other side of your Allen key, but we'll just use a screwdriver. Making tool review videos is literally the best job I've ever had. But this channel needs your help. Please consider hitting like, hit subscribe, hit the hype button below. Doing those things costs you nothing, but gives this channel the revenue it needs to check out cool stuff like this Craig Rebel, which is coming up soon. I appreciate your support. Back to the review. All right, let's walk around this thing like we always do. We have a power switch here. We got on and we have off. There is a loop on the back here, so you could put a padlock in this if you press it down. That way, if you have kids at home or an orange cat you don't trust, you can lock this thing down. I'm happy to see that they didn't go with some weird switch. This has just a standard looking switch. In fact, the inside part here could be the same one that's on my big T2 Delta. Here's our height adjustment knob. We have up this direction and down this direction. It is reasonably smooth, actually a little bit smoother than I expect for less than 200 bucks. Underneath here we have our bevel control. We flip this lever up and that gives us the ability to bevel our saw from 45 back down to 0 or 90. We have a nice red pointer here that's adjustable. It's got a Phillips head, and you got an Allen head on a little cam that's back here. So when you bevel this, it slams up against that. This is adjustable. There's one obviously for the 90 side or 0, but this one's easier for me to show you. You have a nice, easy to read scale here. ShopMaster from Delta. There's your model number. It's serialized. Things to note, 5,000 RPM. Made in Taiwan. Here on the right side, we have a couple things going on. Obviously our push stick in a good position and not bad. We have our Allen key. Underneath here, we have our blade guard. This just pops into this bracket here. You push it down and it kind of clicks in. Secure enough. And we have our kickback pawl sitting back here. I had to remove this when I beveled the saw because it was actually the plastic blade guard here was hitting this as it was beveling. But I suppose you're supposed to be using this thing. The only thing going on in the back here is this very plasticky blade housing and the dust port. The dust port is 2.5. Here on the left side of the saw, we have a spot for our miter gauge and we have a spot for our fence to fit in. Right here, which is nice. However, there's no cord keeper here. There's nowhere to put the cord, so I guess we'll have to keep the twist tie or we have to get a piece of Velcro or something. Underneath here, we have our motor. You can see access both sides for your brushes. If you watch back here at the lift mechanism, you'll see it basically pivots to lift. It rides on this screw right here on the bottom and then pivots on that axis right there. This has got to be more cost effective for them, and if it doesn't give me any trouble, I'm totally fine with it. Let's talk about this interesting fence for a second. This is made of steel, at least on the inside, and there also. Most of these fences are made of aluminum. Aluminum is kind of the standard for job site table saws, probably for weight savings. The button here, that's lock, that's unlock. It's a little harder to press when it's on the saw. When I press that down, you can see all it does is grab from the back. There's this weird looking surface here. We're going to talk about that. I'll show it to you on the saw in a second. The back of the saw rides here and there is an adjusting screw on the back here. So tightening this will tighten the tension, which I'm going to show you in a second is something we're going to have to fiddle with a little. It also has an auxiliary fence that's on a magnet. For plastic, for a cheap plastic piece, I actually really like this design. It makes total sense and it's on the back side. So if you want to use the auxiliary fence, sorry, this is not super smooth unless you use two hands. There you go. You can use it that way. Locks down. Feels pretty secure, except for in the back. In the back, I can just move this around. If you're rough with this, I have a feeling this is going to move on you. We're going to fiddle with the tension and see if we can't get the back to be a little more secure. This is a little hard to show you, but here is the back side of your fence. And here's the pad that contacts this surface when I pull the locking button down. And now it's locked. You can't really see, but it isn't touching on the bottom here. It doesn't actually contact on the bottom. The only thing that contacts is this little tab at the top here. So I feel like this fence was probably designed maybe for a different rail on the back and they're just using it for this. I guess you do get some flex at that tab at the top, but I don't know. I'm no mechanical engineer, but it would make sense to me. The more surface area you get on this, the tighter it would lock up, but that's what you got. Scale is, I guess, screen printed on here. Feels like nice quality stuff. This being not a rack and pinion fence, we're gonna be checking with a tape measure on both ends of the blade on this fence to make sure we get this as straight as we can, because there is no self-straightening feature here. You can lock this down as crooked as you want to. It doesn't care. No straightening whatsoever, just locks. Maybe we should leave it a little loose. We could always bump it when it's locked. That's how I used to do my old Ryobi. Tabletop actually has a pretty nice finish to it. It's got kind of a texture. For the most part, this feels better, like better than the Cobalt did, which was considerably more expensive. Here's the one thing I can tell you right off the bat. As soon as I saw this, I was disappointed. The miter slots. So they did the tab thing, which gives you kind of a T-slot here with your miter gauge. Once it's under the tab, it's locked in. You know what, honestly, this is fine, but for me, it's not good. Because as they pull these tabs up, there's now holes underneath here, and I don't think we're gonna get our saw gauge in here to check that. I think that one there, the little pins are gonna fall through, but we'll find out. The bottom one here is the miter gauge from the Bauer bandsaw we just did, and you can see there's a difference. This will not work in this saw. So it is what it is, but it's a disappointment. This is a Ryobi move right here that I'm not a fan of. Here's our throat plate. It's actually pretty nicely made. The molding on this looks like quality. It is plastic and it's flexible, but you know, for 180 bucks, this does not look like bad quality. It really doesn't. It's got 4 points of adjustment here. There's Phillips screws. You can adjust them through the holes, and it has a real riving knife with a lever, just like a real saw. It is 2 position adjustable. It through cuts. Putting it down would be non-through cuts, and you're really meant to leave this in. However, it comes out. And there's your markings. It's a little greasy here. Through cut position. This would be non-through cut position, this line here. So this looks like any professional riving knife that comes with any decent job site saw. If you do pull this riving knife out, it doesn't go back in. And this was a concern. I thought I already screwed this up, but there is this like, I guess it's a bolt. It's on a spring. If you reach down in there and push that in, you can easily pop your riving knife back in there, and it locks down with the lever. The lever is non-impressive plastic, but it's pretty much the same non-impressive plastic that's with my 36 725 T2 saw. That, what do those go for now? $700-800 bucks. Removing our blades, a 2-wrench design here. You got open-ended and closed-ended for the outside. I have yet to figure out what the hook is for. So we'll turn that until it hits the flat spot. You'll notice this arbor, which is 5/8 and standard, is pretty short. So guess what? No dado with this little inexpensive table saw. We're not surprised at all to see that, but just so you know, oddly thin on the edges washer. General purpose, ShopMaster, 24 tooth, 10 inch, max RPM, 6,000. Doesn't look like a terrible blade, but we're gonna find out. There's our inner washer, and there's our arbor. Not much else going on in there. Full up blade height on this is 3 1/8. At 45 degrees is 2 5/8. Tabletop width is 30 1/8. About 20 1/4 deep. From the front of the saw to your blade is about 7 1/2. From the table to the tabletop is about 12 1/8. We'll hit 0 on our angle gauge. There you go, 0. $89.7. We can adjust our stops a little bit to compensate for that. That's no big deal. I just wanted to see what it was like out of the factory, and we'll bevel it to 45. Make sure I got it all the way. 45.76, or a little bit off there. We can adjust our stops to make that perfectly at 45. No big deal. But just so you know, if you buy one of these saws, I would check this stuff, because For 180 bucks, man, that's about what I expect from the factory. It's the saw gauge I normally use to check the essential measurement of, is the blade perfectly parallel with the miter slot. And the way we do this with this gauge, I have these two pins. I set them next to each other down in the miter slot. And I have this barbell looking pin, and that sits on top of them. It pushes them out to the ends because of those stupid tabs. Ain't gonna happen. So I have really no way to check this. I'm sure there is maybe a gauge we could get that would work in this, but yeah, there's another slot tabs right here, and it's the same, and it's right smack in almost in the middle. It's like right there. So that's not gonna happen. You guys might have a better idea, but yeah, this thwarts me, at least how I normally do it. I used to check these with the ruler back in the day when I first started doing this, before this channel had 2 nickels to rub together. I got 5.5 in the back on the ruler. I guess we could rotate the blade for what it's worth. And I got 5.5 in the front, so I'm gonna call it good enough. I flipped this on its back just for fun. I don't really see a way, because of the way this pivots, this motor pivots to lift the blade, I don't see the, you know, the usual standard 2 bolts here and 2 at the back to parallel your blade. I don't see that on this. I think there might actually not be a way to do that on this saw. So I guess a little concerning, but it's a better look at your lift mechanism. This would be lowering your blade, but it seems to work pretty good. Also missed in the walk around, here's where your 2 wrenches mount to the inside of this rail here with the wing nut and a carriage bolt. And since we're under here, you'll notice that there's kind of like a tunnel here on the bottom of the feet, and there's a threaded nutsert in here on the end of this tube. That's because, like I asked in the beginning of this video, did Delta really make this saw? Just Google chain type Taiwan, and you'll find out that this saw has a lot of elements that a Porter Cable saw that was available Lowe's exclusive in Canada, and they had some issues with that saw. If you Google that, you'll find that saw and see what I'm talking about. But I assume this new version, those past issues have been remedied, so we'll roll with that. Feel free to make fun of me in the comments, but damn it, we do every one of these saws, so I'm gonna do this one too. Standard stuff, about 1/8 thou around the blade here. A little bit on this part of this side of the miter slot. You're about 10 thou and it dips down, and I have this about as flat as I could get it. This is pretty flat, but once we get out to the ends, we get some space. Honestly, this saw is right on par with what we see from DeWalt, Skill, Cobalt. It's no worse than any of those. So I give it thumbs up. I'm on my 3rd quarter turn here of the nut on the back of this fence to see if I can get it to lock down any tighter. It still moves in the back. The front, very solid. The back, so be aware, it's not 100% solid. I really like it to be, but it's not. And I don't want to really overdo this. So we'll go 1 more quarter turn. That is a full turn now. It's a little bit harder to lock down, and we're really bending the tab on the back of this thing now. That's better. It is better. So for what it's worth, 10 mil on the back, 1 turn is what mine took. This is always hard for me to show you guys. My riving knife is off by maybe 1/2 millimeter or so to one side. It's hitting right, it looks worse in this than it really is, to my eye at least. It's hitting, maybe I move this over here, yeah. So it's hitting like right on the side, on the one end of my carbide tips. I don't think it's gonna cause me any trouble feeding, but just so you know, there is a riving knife adjustment for this. It's a little bit finicky and it's way down in there. You're gonna have to probably remove the plastic guard to get to it, or I would probably just drill a hole in it, but you loosen the 2 bottom screws, use the 2 top screws to make adjustments. At least they give you the option. So I'm gonna leave this one be. We'll see how it goes. We're about 30 inches from the front of the blade to the microphone, as usual. Let's see how loud this thing is. Pretty standard, very loud. No blade wobble. I was kind of worried about that at the price point. This fence, like I said, is a straight up tape measure affair. Looks pretty good. I have the table, because there's no rubber feet on it, I have it clamped in the back to the actual table, and we have no outfeed table because this is my outfeed table we're sitting on. We'll start with a little 3/4 plywood, little 1x red oak, we'll run that through, and then we'll cross cut this 2x red oak. See how it does with that stuff. Cuts surprisingly nice, actually. Seems like it has tons of power. I mean, 15 amps is 15 amps, but more power than I expected, considering the price. Not too shabby looking. Goes through this stuff like butter. Way better than I expected it, for 180 bucks. I'm sure it's not gonna have a problem, but we'll cross cut this 2x oak and see how it does with that. So how do you guys think we ended up with this one? It's a little bit of an oddball. It's got some quality stuff going on here. It's got tons of power. It cut through 2x red oak just as good as any other job site table saw I've used. However, the fence, I mean, it's a $180 table saw, and you're gonna have to make some concessions, obviously. We all know that. The fence actually isn't that bad. I don't think I mentioned, but it has a plastic face that's screwed to the metal that gives it kind of a smooth surface. The finish on the top of this saw isn't bad. It's actually better than the Cobalt and the Master Force, which are twice the price of this. I saw in the box there's a stand available, like a scissor stand if you want to get that. I did have to abort a cut that I didn't show you on this 2x4. Now, this 2x4 is kind of twisted, and it's closing up on the end, and I think that was the problem. I actually tried to run it through twice and failed both times. It almost got a kickback. I pulled it out before it got me, but I don't stand behind it anyway. So I'm pretty happy with this, considering what it is. I would implore you, go borrow $100 from your grandma and buy the skill, because the skill is a world better than this. But if this is all you gotta rip, you know, a couple boards, fix a deck. Just bought your first house. We all understand, we were all there, and I owned a Ryobi saw that was very similar to this for quite a long time when I was a kid. And it is what it is. So I think you could do worse than this, to be honest with you, but I think you could do a lot better too. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Hit me up. Let me know. I'll see you in the next video.